Traditionally, the Kimura has been taught as a submission from close guard or from side control. And if you're able to get the hand behind the back, it's a really devastating submission that would even force your opponent to sacrifice their top position to alleviate the pressure. But what if we're not able to get the hand behind the back, right? There's a lot of tactics that people teach to get the hand behind the back to complete the Kimura. But a lot of times against a resisting opponent, this is difficult to do. But what if there was a way to utilize the Kimura even if we're not able to get the hand behind the back? And that is the value of the Kimura trap, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Give you guys an introduction to the Kimura trap. Just a quick reminder before we hop into the video, we are currently at 866 subscribers, and we're at a good pace to get to 1,000 by the end of the year. And if we get to 1,000 by the end of the year, I'll be giving away a $50 BJJ Fanatics gift card. So just want to thank you guys for the support, and I look forward to doing this giveaway and many, many giveaways in the future. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you are subscribed, please share the video, help us get to that 1,000 mark, and let's get into the video. The goal of this video is just to introduce the Kimura trap and discuss different ways to enter into the position. So first we're going to show what the position is, then we're going to talk about some entries. We're going to talk about the classic rolling entry, then we're going to talk about how to pass the guard using the Kimura trap, and then we're going to talk about how to use the Kimura trap to counter a single leg. And there is a fifth kind of bonus tip at the end. I think it's an underutilized application of the Kimura trap. So if you guys are interested in that, stick to the end of the video and let's get into this introduction. So what is the Kimura trap? The Kimura trap is this position here where it looks like our bodies are aligned in a T, right? We're perpendicular with one another. So the person who is in the attacking position is the top of the T in the dark blue gi in this scenario. They have a Kimura grip on their partner, but the hand is not behind the back. And the Danaher people, they call, instead of a Kimura trap, they call it the T-Kimora position. And that's how I learned it. I learned it from them watching John's Kimura DVD. That's where I was first exposed to this. But just know that T-Kimora and Kimura trap are interchangeable terms. And the idea is that you're using the Kimura not to submit your opponent, but as a controlling position to transition to back takes, to transition to arm bars and triangles and things like that. So we're going to talk about different ways to enter into the position, not necessarily do a deep dive into the different pathways of the position, but just to give you guys an idea of what the position is. It's this T position here that we end up in with a Kimura grip on the arm. Now, one of the classic ways to get to the T-Kimura position is by doing a rolling Kimura entry. And this is kind of based on the principle that we talked about in the last video, the principle of extension versus contraction. And sometimes our opponent is nice enough just to extend their own limbs for us. And when they do that, they give us the ability to capitalize on that extension, right? And to enter into attacks on their extended limbs. And in this scenario, it's an attack on the Kimura. And again, we're using the Kimura not as a submission because the hand is still in front of the body. However, we can use it to transition to different positions like the back in this scenario. Now, sometimes our opponents are not as nice and they don't just extend their limbs for us. So we have to come up with ways to create that extension. So one of those ways is, again, like we talked about in the last video, by playing contraction versus extension off of one another. So in this scenario, if you're trying to push someone to the ground and they don't want to fall, they're going to put their hand on the ground to prevent themselves from falling down to their back. But by putting their hand down to the ground, now we have extension. And that creates a great opportunity to perform the rolling Kimura. Now, again, as our opponents become more and more intelligent, they become less and less nice to us, right? So if we try, you could see Gary really trying to push the head down, really trying to get his opponent to put that hand down on the ground for an extended period of time. And the hand does briefly go to the ground, and Gary tries to roll, but his opponent takes it off very quickly, right? People are getting more and more in tune to this rolling Kimura. So if you just try and do a Kimura roll like the one we see here, where you just roll on through and expect it to work against anyone good, it's probably not going to happen. And people are coming up with more and more creative ways to counter that rolling entry. So instead, we need to create dilemmas for our opponent. We have to threaten a knee cut pass. And if they don't want to fall, they're going to give us the Kimura. So that's the idea behind the rolling entry, especially on advanced people. You have to threaten compromising their base so that they extend, and by extending, they give you the rolling entry to the Kimura. Now, if you want to dive deeper into that principle of extension versus contraction, I'll leave the link at the end of the video as well as in the description below. Now we're going to talk about how to use the T-Kimura to pass the guard. And Gordon named his guard passing instructional attacking the guard. And what he means by this is that you don't necessarily have to do a Toriando pass or an over-under guard pass. You can use submissions to attack your partner's guard, and that will facilitate the pass. So you see here Gordon using a guillotine to pass his partner's guard and ultimately finish with that submission attempt. But we can also do the same thing with the Kimura. And typically this leads to the T-Kimura scenario. So you'll see here from half guard, you can lock up a Kimura grip on the far side arm and then roll over your shoulder to land in that T-Kimura position. Now, I think half guard is the most common, but you can see Gary using it here to pass Ashigarami, the single leg X. And you'll see Craig Jones doing the same thing. And I think the common scenario here is that half guard and Ashigarami or single leg X are typically seen as like neutral positions, right? Like they're good things the bottom player can do from bottom half guard, and there's good things the top player can do. And same thing with Ashigarami. In fact, it's probably considered more of an offensive position for the person on bottom, right? So because the person is playing a guard where they're offensive, they're more inclined to extend their body, which would lead to you being able to capitalize on that extension with the Kimura. And you'll see here another scenario from deep half. You can counter the deep half guard with this Kimura and roll through the T-Kimura scenario. And again, deep half is a position where a lot of people prefer to play deep half. You know, there's a lot of offense that people can do from there, which leads to extension. And when people extend their limbs, it gives us the opportunity to roll through for that Kimura trap. Another scenario where people tend to extend themselves and reach for our limbs is in a single leg scenario. And this can be straight up like they're trying to take us down with a single leg, and we wrap the Kimura and use that Kimura trap to counter the single leg. Or it could be they're trying to stand up from a front headlock position, and we use the T-Kimura position to flip them over and expose their back. Or we could never leave the mat, but it's still the same scenario where we're kind of in like a single leg scenario where they have control of one of our legs. It typically leaves them extended and vulnerable to the T-Kimura position. Now, in my opinion, an overlooked application of the T-Kimura position is winning scrambles, and specifically the scramble that takes place when someone is escaping the back. So this is kind of a classic scenario here where someone is standing up as they're having their back taken, and the person in gold here is sliding over the top. And you'll see here Gordon is kind of in the same situation. He's falling over the top, and he transitions to the Kimura as a way to maintain control over the position and reestablish control of the back. So again, you'll see here William Tackett kind of dives for the back, but he's not able to successfully expose his opponent's back. They're kind of shimmying their back towards the ground, right? So to maintain control of the position, he transitions to the T-Kimura. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. We are very close to 1,000 subscribers, and I very much appreciate the support. We will see you on the next one.